Yes, sir.
Um, I'll just do the quick introduction. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I'll do the opening statements and so on. Does that work?
Yep. Did you receive those okay?
I did. Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, wait a second. Oh, shoot. I had it live and I hit the go back button. I might have. Bear with me. I think I've almost got us set here.
Looks like it's going live now. I'm on YouTube now, Jay.
Excellent. Thank you. I think I might be double doing it. So if you could just stay there for a moment, I'm gonna, is it still up there? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
All right, great. Then it's your meeting.
Okay. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the July 8th, 2020 regular meeting of the Scarborough Zoning Board of Appeals. Before we get started, let's all please join and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, or sit for the Pledge of Allegiance, however you want to do it, since we're all virtual tonight. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, today is a virtual Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. It is a remote meeting using Zoom as the application. People can access the meeting by going to the Zoning Board of Appeals webpage found on the Town of Scarborough website under Town Government Boards and Committees, and then select the meeting agenda to open it. If you want to view this, you click on the YouTube link. If you want to attend the Board of Appeals meeting virtually and provide public comment, click on the Zoom link that is on the website. For listening to the meeting with or without video, and for those that don't have a computer or the internet, there is a dial-in phone number posted on the agenda. The board recommends written public comment prior to the upcoming meeting, which is tonight, at this time, given the remote video conference meeting format. Directions can be found on the Zoning Board's webpage. Attendees are going to be muted and must raise your hand in order to be called on during the public comment parts of the agenda. Please only raise your hand once when it's time for public comment and not during the applicant's presentation or board deliberation and so on. If the chair happens to drop off, and I am the chair tonight, James Heber, if the chair happens to drop off during the meeting due to technical difficulties, the vice chair shall start running the meeting until the chair returns. Do we want to designate a chair for this evening, Brian? A vice chair for this evening?
That would be up to you.
Sure. I'll just designate Rudy Karen as the vice chair for this evening, using the powers vested in me by the Town of Scarborough. So if I go offline, Rudy, you're going to have to take it from here.
I'll do my best.
Thank you. Thank you. So the chair will read I'll read the standard remarks. If any board member loses connection at any time during the meeting, you can just go to the town's website and click on the meeting notice, and that way you become a panelist, and then we'll elevate you to participant from there. Also, ladies and gentlemen, if you're at home watching right now, so many of you that are, please note that we are in the middle of a thunderstorm right now. So if we do lose power or lose connectivity, we will be attempting to reestablish the appeals meeting. We'll take about 15 minutes or so. If the meeting isn't back online on YouTube Live within that 15 minutes, we'll more likely than not, we'll have to reschedule this until next month, and in which case the folks from the planning office, Brian and Jay, will reach out and contact you to let you know what the additional steps are at that point. So getting to the business of the Zoning Board of Appeals, this is a public proceeding. And unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, the public has the right to hear everything that is being said and to view all of the exhibits that are being presented. Please notify the chairperson, which is me. If you are unable to hear or see the proceedings, just type in a chat and view the window. Please, the board we work from a prepared agenda, and we'll take up tonight's items in the following order. So right now, what we'll do is I'll just state where we're going for the agenda, then we'll go right into it. So we did our Pledge of Allegiance. We will have the roll call. We will have the approval of minutes from June 10th, 2020. The approval of the draft written decisions that was heard during the June 10th meeting. There were 3 of them. And then we will go into the appeals for tonight. And the 2 appeals we have tonight are 2690, special exception by appeal by Brian Woodbury, and appeal number 2691, limited reduction of yard size, appeal by Philip and Therese von Stade. So with that, let's go into roll call. So Jay or Brian, would you mind?
Sure. Mr. Karen,
Here.
Mr. Bork. Oops, you're still muted. Here. Thank you. Ms. Torrens,
Here.
Mr. Howe.
Here.
Miss Shoup. Okay.
All right. Everyone, I believe, is a voting member tonight. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian. And there are
That's
5,
correct.
and there are 5 of us present. So after roll call, let's go to the approval of the minutes. So has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our June 10th meeting in 2020? I can just get a head nod from everybody if that will work. Great. Are there any questions, edits, or modifications that anyone would like to make to the minutes at this time?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
did you actually receive minutes from the June 10th meeting?
I'm looking for minutes right now, actually.
I don't think we have minutes from the June 10th meeting.
Okay, then we will hold off on approving those minutes until next
Yes.
month when we have it typed up. But what we do have are the draft written decisions for the appeals that were heard last month. And so I'll start with the draft decision on appeal number 2687. That was a limited reduction of yard size by Michael Downing on behalf of Temmie Lessler on 27 King Street. Does anyone have any objections, comments, or additions they would like to make at this time? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the appeal, the draft decision of the appeal number 2687?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion to approve appeal number 2687 as written.
Motion and
Excellent.
second.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand and give a head nod. Great, excellent, thank you. That's a unanimous. When we get into,
Believe votes need to be taken by roll as well, roll call as well.
yeah, I
Sorry,
was
I-
just thinking that. No, thank you, Jay. I
Yep.
appreciate that. So let's go through and Brian, would you go through the roll call for the vote?
Sure. Mr. Bork,
Yes.
Mr. Karen,
Yes.
Ms. Torrens,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
and Mr. Hebert.
Yes.
That's 5-0.
Excellent. Thank you. The next we have is the draft decision for appeal number 2688, the administrative appeal by Marcel Neto, 1 Pillsbury Drive. Do I have a motion to accept that as it was presented?
Mr.
Mr.
Chair,
Yes.
motion to approve appeal number 2688 as written.
Motion to second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Mr. Bork,
Yes.
Mr. Karen,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Hebert,
Yes.
Ms. Torrens.
Yes.
That's 5-0.
Excellent. And lastly, appeal number 2689, limited reduction of yard size appeal by Kevin and Molly Christensen. Do I have a motion on that?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Motion to approve appeal number 2689 as written.
Motion to second.
All right. All those in favor?
Mr. Bork,
Yes.
Mr. Karen,
Yes.
Mr. Hebert,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
and Ms. Torrens.
Yes.
I finally got it in alphabetical order that time.
Third time's the charm. Excellent. All right. Well, seeing no other comments from the board, let's move right on to the appeals. So the first appeal we have is appeal number 2690, a special exception appeal by Brian Woodbury of 36 Winnick's Neck Road, Assessor's Map R073, Lot 10B. Mr. Longstaff, If you would, please just give us a brief background on this and we'll bring the applicant in.
Sure. So the applicant is seeking a special exception home occupation permit to operate a home gym in the garage of his residence. In a conversation with the appellant, it was explained that he shares his home gym with friends and family, and they in turn provide some financial support to help maintain the equipment, et cetera. The financial transaction for the use of the equipment could technically be considered a commercial use, but is clearly incidental to the residential use of the property. Prior to receiving the special exception application, the department has received complaints from neighbors alleging that the applicant was operating a commercial gym, so on and so forth. So this is one way to rectify that violation. Mr. Woodbury did approach me to seek out the proper process for getting a home occupation, and he has submitted his application for this special exception home occupation. I do know that I will note that there are neighbors from the neighborhood present who will wish probably to speak during the public comment period. I want to, I think, just sort of head off some comments that could be coming with regard to how would this home occupation be operated in this period of COVID-19 emergency, whatever. We're not here to debate whether or not the home occupation, the proposed home occupation, can be operated safely with regard to the CDC guidelines. That's up to the business if and when it is approved. It's their responsibility to comply with those regulations, and then, possible enforcement action could happen if they don't, depending on how the state comes down with their whole mandates. But it's not the board's decision to determine whether or not it can be approved at this time. We're simply here to review the special exception standards from Section 4 in the zoning ordinance, just as we would at any other period in any other year that we've done this. So I don't want the applicant to have to belabor and answer questions about how would you operate safely during COVID. We're going to assume that they have to follow guidelines, and in fact might not, if approved, might not be able to operate in the upcoming weeks, maybe even months. Who knows? Maybe they can, maybe they can't. That's their decision to determine whether or not they can meet those guidelines. Our guidelines are in the special exception standards in Section 4 of the ordinance, and I'd like to make sure that the questioning and the appeal is centered around those, whether or not the applicant has met those standards. Any questions on that before we get going?
I don't have any questions, but just to briefly piggyback on what you're saying, Brian. So again, our goal on this is to view it through the eyes of our applications and that are in front of us, as we do each time. The CDC has their own guidelines and restrictions that people need to abide by to take that. And during this pandemic, excuse me, I'm having a hard time speaking tonight. So that is a side issue not related to this. We are to treat this as if everything is status quo, operating like we were 6 months ago.
I just had one comment to make, because I noticed, we just as Mr. Longstaff was starting to give us the background on this, Mr. Woodbury lost audio connection. So I just want to make sure that he is reestablished and that we are reconnected, and that you feel that we've got enough, or feel like you didn't miss anything or need us to recapture.
Hi, can people hear or see me? One or the other?
Both.
Okay, so I called in on my phone because I lost audio on my computer. Now I'm not sure which audio source is turned, but I guess we can kind of roll with it
Either
from
way, we
here.
can hear
But I
you.
did. Okay, perfect. As long as it's not echoing, I'm happy.
Yep. No,
But
it
I
seems.
just wanted-
No, I appreciate it. It seems to be you're coming through just fine right now. So whatever's going on now, we'll just keep this going as it is right now. So what I'd like you to do is just give us just a brief overview of what you're asking for here, and then we'll have some questions from the board. Any questions that you have, you can direct them through me, and what we will do is we'll go through each of the standard exceptions A through I. When we get to that point, you can just read the answers that you provided us, just so that we can read it into the record and it's recorded.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess as an overview, I have a home gym here in my home. It was initially intended for, of course, me and my fiance. We're both former athletes, and we obviously enjoy working out and staying in shape. From there, of course, we've had friends and family be interested in using the gym, in which case it's our gym. So we just went ahead and allowed, like, my little brother to use it. We have friends that like to use it, and so be it. I am going to go based off of what Brian put for like the pre-meeting notes, because I'm assuming that's what I missed, was kind of a recap of that while I reestablished audio. But he pretty much nailed it. That's pretty much exactly it. So we do have friends and family that do pay us. So they do pay us for use of the gym. And again, it's nothing crazy. It's like if they want to offer up $10, we can maintain equipment or get new equipment or just make it a better place for us to use, then that's its intended purpose at this point. Obviously, as more friends and family would like to use it, we have friends of friends that would like to use it. And, you know, so we're basically, I guess what I'm looking for is the ability to make money off of having a home gym. If that is, of course, not okay, then obviously that will not happen. But basically, I'm kind of in this weird spot where we had just had a passion for our own fitness, and then it just kind of grew by word of mouth, and here we are. I wish I kind of had more for you, but it's kind of a boring story.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. So I
Yeah,
guess with that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off the standards of the special exceptions A through I, and then you can just answer them. That way it's recorded into the record. So the
Sure.
standards for special exception, letter A, the proposed use will not create unsanitary or unhealthful conditions by reason of sewage disposal, emissions to the air or water, or other aspects of its design or operation.
No.
Okay. And do you want to read the answer that you submitted to us in here?
I don't have it up. I can find it. I believe I have it as an attachment to Brian.
Okay.
But basically, all I did was restate the question and say that our home gym will not break any of these rules. But let me see if I can pull it up.
Sure. I guess, Brian, would it be prudent for one of us to read in the answers that they provided?
Yeah, I mean, I can
Sure,
read.
yeah.
I can read the
Oh,
answer. I've got it in front of me. So his response to criteria A was the proposed use, a home gym in our garage will not create unsanitary or unhealthful conditions by reason of sewage disposal, emissions to the air or water, or other aspects of its design or operation.
Okay. And do you agree
And I
with
did just pull
that?
it up.
Okay. Excellent. I'll go to letter B. The proposed use will not create unsafe vehicular or pedestrian traffic conditions when added to existing and foreseeable traffic in its vicinity.
The home gym will not create unsafe vehicular or pedestrian traffic conditions when added to existing and foreseeable traffic in its vicinity, as we'll have complete control of access to the home gym.
Okay. Letter C. The proposed use will not create public safety problems which would be substantially different from those created by existing uses in the neighborhood or require a substantially greater degree in municipal fire or police protection than existing uses in the neighborhood.
And I said the home gym in our garage will not create public safety problems which would be substantially different from those created by existing uses in the neighborhood. We will not create a greater degree in municipal fire or police protection than the rest of the neighborhood.
Okay. Letter D, the proposed use will not result in sedimentation or erosion or have an adverse effect on water supplies.
The home gym will not result in sedimentation or erosion or have any effect on water supplies.
Okay. The proposed use will be compatible with existing uses in the neighborhood with respect to physical size, visual impact, intensity of use, proximity to other structures, and density of development.
The home gym will be compatible with existing uses in the neighborhood. The size and visual impact of our home will not change, and we will not be any closer to any other structures. Intensity of use will not change as we live here and we have friends and family over regularly.
Okay. Let's see. Letter F, if located in the shoreland zone, Mr. Longstaff, are we located in the shoreland zone here?
A portion of the lot is in the shoreline zone. Actually, not the portion of the lot that contains the dwelling.
Okay, so does this make it a non-applicable situation here, or do we have
It's
to address it?
basically
directly?
not applicable, but even if the entire structure was within the shoreline zone, it's still a special exception. Home occupation is still a permitted use in the shoreline zone as long as it
Mhm.
receives board approval.
Okay, then what we'll do is we'll label this as non-applicable for the purposes of this application. Letter G, the applicant has sufficient right, title, or interest in the site of the proposed use to be able to carry out the proposed use. Mr. Woodbury?
And I'm hoping I answered this correctly, but I said I have sufficient right, title, or interest in the site of the proposed home gym as the owner of the property. Me and my fiance own the house.
Excellent. I believe that information was included with the warranty deed and so on. That was with the packet. Letter H, the applicant has the technical and financial ability to meet the standards of this section and to comply with any conditions imposed by the Board of Appeals pursuant to subsection 5 of this section.
I have the technical and financial ability to meet the standards of this section and to comply with any and all conditions imposed by the Board of Appeals.
Excellent. Okay. And lastly, letter I, the proposed use will be compatible with existing uses in the neighborhood with respect to the generation of noise and hours of operation.
The home gym will be compatible with existing uses of the neighborhood with respect to the generation of noise and hours of operation.
Okay. All right. At this point, do I have any questions from board members? I see Mr. Bork's hand first.
Unmute. Okay, I've unmuted. And I'd like to go back to C, which states that the proposed use will not create public safety problems. It will be substantially different than those created by the existing use in the neighborhood or require a substantially greater degree in municipal fire and police protection than existing uses in the neighborhood. And the answer to that that I have on my printed copy was slightly different than what the applicant had. Mine states the home gym in the garage and outdoor backyard training area. That was not stated by the applicant. Okay, so I'd just like to get a clarification on that from Mr. Woodbury, please.
Yeah, sure. I actually have that on mine too. I just took it off because assuming Brian's reading the same thing I am, I did have that on here, but basically that is on there. My understanding is I'm, I guess, allowed through the ordinance to have like an outdoor recreation facility, but I can of course restate the question if that is easier.
Now, Mr. Longstaff, correct me if I'm wrong, but is with the home occupation, does this have to be inside the home structure itself, or can it be exterior of the home? You're on mute.
I'm so used to not being muted. Many people wish I was muted, but I'm not. Yeah, the special exception standards in section 9 for home occupations clearly state that the activity must occur wholly within the principal dwelling or an accessory dwelling there too. So an outdoor activity area would not be in compliance with the home occupation standards. So that is certainly something that the applicant has to consider. Having said that, and just to manage expectations across the board, if I own a home in Scarborough and I choose to have a tennis court in my backyard, as long as I'm not in any other non-conforming situation, I can certainly do that. But as a home occupation, I then couldn't have a home occupation of conducting a tennis camp in my backyard and having people use that tennis court. Now, if that was an indoor court and it was less than 1,000 square feet as an accessory structure, then it might work. I don't know what the square footage of the tennis court is, but I just want to lay that out there as an example. So the applicant may have an outdoor area that he uses for his own physical fitness or sport, whether he be a tennis player or a weightlifter or what, it doesn't matter. He can have that, but that cannot then be part of his commercial activity. So that's where it's going to get very tricky. I think Mr. Woodbury needs to understand it. The board needs to understand it. If, as they weigh whether or not this activity is going to meet the standards, that's one part of the standard that if that's part of his plan, that will not work as a home occupation.
So
that's-
I would say because that this is in writing in the application, what we do is when we motion to approve an application, we can put on certain constraints. And one of the constraints I can foresee is just making sure that the entire occupation as a use as an occupation is limited to inside of the garage structure and not in the backyard. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I have
Mr. Bork,
I have one other question real quick.
please.
It is which is concerning hours of operation and generation of noise. Primarily your hours of operation. What are your hours of operation, Mr. Woodbury?
I would say both my fiance and I work full time. So I would say our hours of operation are roughly an hour before I go to work. So usually like 8 in the morning to 9 in the morning, and then I'll go to work. And then typically when I get out of work around 4:30, my fiance or friends or whatever would be here from probably 4:30 to 5:30, 6 o'clock, never past 7. So it really depends on what my work schedule is. And like I mentioned, my door is open for like my family. So if they want to come at noon, I just let them into the house. I have the ability to unlock my door from my phone. So if they text me and say they want to use the gym, then I'll open the door. But obviously with all these things being brought up, if these are things that cannot happen, obviously they just won't happen. But yeah.
Okay.
That's
So
all I
that's the
have.
thing, is this is more like a hobby. Like this isn't like my job, career, or anything like that. So I'm not gonna be like just 7 in the morning to 9 at night, or like those things. It's just not feasible.
Sure. Okay. Other questions?
But I did want to
Oh.
about just like with the outdoor area. So I'm obviously fine with that. I guess my thought with that is if we're gonna go warm up and they want to go do high knees in the backyard, or like do medicine ball tosses, like those sorts of things. I just want to know if those things can't happen. Obviously, they won't either. I just wanted to clarify, I guess, what outdoor workouts or whatever it might be. But
I don't, the way that the ordinance is written with a home occupation, I don't think any outdoor workouts related directly to the home occupation with folks who are paying to be there can take place outside. Now, if you want to do it yourself as a personal and the
Sure.
in the role of a hobby, so to speak, that you can do whatever you
Yeah.
want in your backyard. But if you're charging money and you're operating it as a business, it has to be solely within the structure. And correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
Brian.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chair, therein lies the difficulty in this particular type of activity. There's certainly other types of home occupations that may have similar issues, but it's going to be very, and again, this is just for everybody out there, the board, the applicant, the neighbors. Understand that Mr. Woodbury could invite any number of friends over to enjoy whatever recreational activities he has on his property. And the town has no play there. Certainly if he breaks a noise ordinance or a good neighbor ordinance or some other, type of violation, maybe, but the simple act of inviting friends and family over to use equipment or to play in the backyard or to throw horseshoes or whatever. Those activities are going to happen, and those activities are likely to generate traffic and cars, and there's no regulation, that precludes somebody from doing that. It's going to be very difficult. I'm just going to put this out there. I'm not saying that this is going to be approved or not approved. That's not my call. But if it is approved, it's going to be very difficult to separate or draw a line between, okay, so friends and family come over and maybe they're contributing to the cost of the upkeep of equipment or whatever, and they want to gather in the backyard to, do some stretching or what. I don't know how we're going to regulate, how you're going to separate that from the home occupation. And yet that activity could certainly take place with no remuneration of any kind, and in greater numbers. So I see some great difficulty if this is going to be approved, and yet if it was denied and Mr. Woodbury said, okay, fine, I'm not going to take any money for any of this, I'm still going to let my friends and family use it, the town has no role there, and the same activity can occur. So it's really, I just want to point out the difficulty and the nuances with this type of thing. No different than if Ms. Torrance decided to have a Tupperware party at her house once a month. And I don't mean to, I'm not trying to characterize, I could have a Tupperware party. But if we chose to do that, we have the right to do that. There's no regulation in Scarborough that says you can't. And yet it can generate the same kind of, in the same kind of hours and the same kind of traffic and number of people. And yet it's not anything that we regulate. So
In what you get, I think what you're getting at, Brian, and the lesson, the moral here is that there's no way for the town in Norway, should the town regulate personal use of your property. However, if you're going to be accepting cash and making this a transaction as a business, it needs to be solely within the structure, 100%. And so that's what we'll be discussing with here. I guess, are there any questions at this time from the board members? I see Melinda, you had your hand up.
Yeah, my basic question is just mostly approximately how many people are you extending this to? Like, about how many people would be participating in this? It's kind of a club to some extent, where you're trying to, it sounds like what you're trying to do is just have everybody kind of mutually support the equipment cost and upkeep of the area that's in use. But, about how many people are we talking about, and, what's, and how many people would be there at a time, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, those are all things that I can, of course, regulate too. So obviously with everything that's going on, I do not have big groups, but I would say, including my fiance and I in our garage, we might have 6 total, with both of us lifting 2. So we have 2 racks. So typically me and some of maybe like the stronger guys would be in one rack, and my fiance and, some other people that whatever can't move bigger weight, we'll just separate racks. And we, of course, following Brian's rules and stuff when we talked about it earlier, just making sure it's sanitized or socially distanced. We're doing everything that we need to do to comply with all of that. But I would say that the most is 6, and maybe, I don't know. I mean, of course, there have been times where we might have said 7, but I would say typically it's obviously smaller groups. We just couldn't feasibly fit any more anyway. So.
And like, how often does this happen? Or like, when you say there's maybe 6 people, 6 or 7 people or whatever, is that like in a day? Is that the total number of people that would use this space, or is that just total number at a time?
Well, that would be, I guess, a combination of both. I mean, depending on who comes or shows up, obviously that number changes, and whether I'm home or not, that number can change. So I guess that I don't really have a concrete answer for you, but I would say the most of the time is 6, maybe throughout a day, maybe 8. But I've never like tallied. I don't keep track of it, but it's definitely something I can do if that's necessary.
Well, it's more of, my concerns really are over this whole splitting hairs between, is this a business or is this, more of a home entertainment kind of thing. And I'm just trying to I'm still trying to dissect that, the volume of that. And you know, if there would be some need for us to kind of, I don't know, maybe make recommendations on certain, to a certain level of what kind of, how much volume of activity is. You know, I mean, is this, and the other part of this is there any profit that is to be made off of this activity? Or is it solely for the upkeep of the equipment?
Well, I would say for the price of equipment, we're not profitable. But I mean, at some point, I guess it would be nice to be profitable or open up to like friends of friends or coworkers, or if I have whatever, a coworker that wants to lose weight, maybe I can help them and they don't have to go pay $75 an hour at some other gym, you know? So, I mean, that's kind of like the thought, but yeah, I definitely would not say our home gym is, I mean, I guess in transparency, with my fiance and I being whatever former athletes and we are really into this stuff, I mean, we probably spent $15,000. Like we bought like really nice equipment. So I'm definitely not making that.
Other questions
I
from the
don't know
board?
if that
Oh, sorry. Question. Yeah, Rudy.
All right. Going on to other questions. For part A, is it anticipated that there'll be any restrooms provided?
not outside of just our regular bathroom, no.
Okay. I didn't see too much for sketches. Could you talk a little bit about parking if there was potentially 6 or 7 people there at the time?
Yeah. Well, as far as parking is concerned, I guess I don't really have a way to show you. I don't know if you can look at it on like Google Maps or something, but we have I guess call it a fairly large driveway, and then to the right of the driveway is all gravel. The previous owners owned a landscaping business here, so that side of the house was obviously done up for all of their equipment to kind of sit there. So I will have people park on the side of the house. Yeah, there it is. But to the right of the garage, actually, I think that's the previous owner's stuff. Yeah. So that's how much space is there.
I guess, is that
So
a
as far
turn?
as parking, a lot of space.
I guess piggyback on Rudy's question, one of my concerns as well is how many vehicles are you able to fit into this driveway? I know doesn't appear that there's no sidewalk there. Do you have a turnaround so cars can safely turn around and then pull out of your driveway, or do they have to back out onto Winnick's Neck Road?
No, they can either back out onto the dirt. I know that's what I personally do. Like I would usually park where that white truck is and then like back into the dirt and then pull out. Or of course they're free to pull on the grass too. I mean, whatever gets them out.
Okay. I guess my concern is always from a safety standpoint. If you have a road where cars are going to and from, and if you had mentioned potentially up to 6 to 7 people, not knowing how many cars that could potentially be, worst case scenario, you're looking at 6 or 7 cars in addition to your vehicles in that driveway. I'm having a hard time trying to see all those vehicles fit in that driveway safely, also exiting onto Winnick's Neck Road safely.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say it hasn't been an issue yet because I'll have people pull up and then they all leave at once. It's like the workout's over. So I guess I haven't run into that, but I can definitely see where you're coming from for sure, especially because of the speed people go on Winnick's Neck.
Right. So if people are kind of, especially if you're looking at a corner right here, if people coming down pretty fast and someone is backing out, obviously that's a scenario nobody wants to imagine. But unfortunately, we have to, from our point of view, have to take that into account. I guess other questions from the board at this time? Mr. Bork?
Hold on. Okay, now I've unmuted. Yes, just as a follow-up to this, one of the standards for a home business is that you do have to provide off-street parking for all of your customers and your own vehicles, and for if you have an employee in addition to yourselves, which I take it you don't. than for
No.
that one vehicle too. So if you're looking, you would have to be able to hold 10 vehicles in this driveway. They cannot park on the street. You know, that's one of the standards. Is this driveway large enough in order to hold 10 vehicles? So that would be
I would
about
say
100 feet long. It'd have to be about 100 feet long, double width, in order for that to work.
I would say for the paved area, no, but including the gravel on the side of the house, yeah. Or if they wanted to, I don't know, park on grass, I guess it depends on where or what would need to be paved. I mean, from what you're seeing with the previous owner, I have a ton of unused space, like a lot of gravel on the side of the house. So, because I mean, that's the other thing too. If the board decides what you can only have 3 people, like obviously that's what'll happen. But I guess that's also what I'm trying to clarify and understand as part of this process too.
Well,
Okay.
what really drives it is you have to provide parking for all of your potential customers, plus your own personal vehicles. So that really
Mhm.
drives the number. Okay, so if you can provide that much parking and maintain it clear year round and safe, you know, ingress, egress, then it can work. You know, but all the customers and your own personal vehicles have to be in the driveway. So if it has to be expanded or something, that could work to the number you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Well, and for the driveway, I guess, does that have to be like a paved area, or is that just park anywhere that's my property?
Brian, could you answer that?
It doesn't have to be a paved area, but it has to be accessible. In other words, if you were to create a place out behind the garage where some of these vehicles are, that, and yet there was somebody parked in here, that wouldn't really allow people to move freely throughout. So the parking has to be accessible and practical. You know, obviously you could park on the lawn or you could park other places, but I think the general expectation is that you're going to fit your clientele in this area here and not have them drive out behind and do other things and park on the front lawn and so on and so forth. I think any of this paved area or this graveled area is probably perfectly fine. The question is, can they park there and not, the other concern is backing out onto Winnick's Neck Road. That would be really undesirable thing, particularly given this curve that you have just to the west of you. I think you want to be able to provide a turn. You know, this could act as a turnaround. Certainly, people could come in and park there. If there was room for a car to come in, pull in and back up, then everybody could drive out. I can see possibly 4 to 5 cars maybe being able to do that. I cannot see how you could do 10 cars and have someone not backing out onto Winnick's Neck Road. That would be my concern. And
Well, in 10 cars, like the barometer for space, because I've definitely never had 10 cars here.
No, I'm just giving that as an example, and it would be
okay.
it would be up to the board to determine what they feel is a comfortable number based on what they can see. And unfortunately, you know, part of your application could have certainly been improved had you provided some kind of a parking plan. Here's the number of cars the maximum number of cars I would expect in my yard or be able to have in my yard, and here's how they would navigate and not have to back out onto Winnick's Neck. We don't have that information, so the board's kind of going to have to determine whether or
I
not
guess
that's
do they have to leave from the driveway, or can they leave from any area of my property? So I guess that would be my next question.
Well, again, desirable, the most desired thing and the most practical thing would be that you have an entrance from the road into your driveway. If people are driving across the lawn, oncoming traffic might not be able to anticipate, you know, a car that somehow parked over here on the lawn all of a sudden decides to pull out onto the road. That's not anticipated. Whereas you're looking at driveways and expecting those to be used, I would say that anything other than the driveway area for cars to enter and exit the property would create certainly a safety concern, if not a hazard. I don't know if the board agrees with that assessment. I'm only offering up food for thought here. There are no hard and fast rules per se, but again, if you're operating a business, you're not expecting your clients to drive over the grassed median strip onto Route 1. They're going to enter and exit through your driveway entrance, and that it would be expected, I would think, for the home occupation to operate in the same manner.
There's also, I'll point out, was there a tree also in the front yard, Brian? Okay,
Well,
so there's
there's a little tree here,
a
but
small tree. Yeah, I was
there's
just wondering if
nothing
there's
here.
anything sort of blocking anything in the road there. I mean, generally, and Mr. Longstaff is correct. From my perspective, a driveway is meant for cars ingress and egress onto a property, not necessarily driving off your front lawn or driving off even the back lawn into another location. I guess at this point, are there any other questions from the board? I know we have to still go through the the performance standards for home occupations as well. Any other questions at this time from the board?
Yes, please.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I guess. Sure.
Just a different question. For with proposed or generation of noise, when you and your fiance and your friends and family are working out, do you often have the garage doors open, or do you try to keep those shut? And do you work out in the winter as well for heating and cooling?
Yeah, so I would say we have had the garage doors open in the past if it was that hot or whatever. But yeah, we also have a French doors on the back of the garage, so we can open that too. But generally, we have noticed obviously when those are open, it is more noisy. So we stopped doing that, of course. And then as far as in the winter, yes, we will work out there in the winter too.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have music going in the garage when you guys are working out?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Chip.
During Brian's overview and introduction, I think I heard him say that there had been some complaints filed. Could he elaborate on that?
I think we'll get to that point. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, when we get to the public comment and anything that was written in. Is that when we address that section?
Yeah, I don't think that the complaints are part of this review at the moment, but yeah, I think the public comment will shed some light on those comments, on those complaints rather.
Does that work for
Okay.
you? Does that work for you, Chip?
That's fine. Thanks.
Great. If there aren't any other questions, I believe, Mr. Longstaff, we need to go through the performance standards for the home occupation in section 9. Is that correct?
Yes.
First off, does anyone on the board have any other questions for the applicant? Okay.
I do.
Yes, please.
I'd like to ask Mr. Woodbury if he had a chance to review the performance standards, and if so, have you addressed answers to these questions?
Now, I guess the performance standards to my understanding is what I filled out on the application. I suppose I could be wrong. I'm not super familiar with any of this.
No, it's all right. There's a lot of, I mean, these are a lot of applications and a lot of questions that we ask folks to do when they're going through the zoning board. I guess for what the performance standards are, what we're going to do is these are another set of questions. I'll read them off to you and you just read back your answer to us or just provide us an answer for us to consider.
Sure.
Mr. Bork, does that answer your question? I apologize. I didn't mean if I skipped over you.
It does. It's unfortunate that the applicant didn't have the opportunity to review this and be better prepared. Is the only comment I would make here.
Okay, well, let's go through and discuss here. So the performance standards for home occupations, where a home occupation is allowed as a special exception, the Board of Appeals may issue special exception approval for the establishment of a home occupation. In addition to the meeting of the standards of the special exceptions of this ordinance, all home occupations must adhere to the following standards, and there are 12 standards here. And so what I'll do is I'll ask you these questions, Mr. Woodbury, and if you would just provide us your answer for the record. So question number
Sure.
one, or statement number one, the occupation or profession shall be carried on wholly within the principal building or within a building accessory thereto. So this is the question where this is all within one building.
Yes.
Okay. Number two, the home occupation shall be clearly incidental and secondary to the use of the dwelling unit for residential purposes.
Yes.
Okay. That question is basically saying this is your primary home. You're not looking to
Correct.
get a second home and make this your full-time gym.
Correct.
Number three, no more than one person who is not a resident of the dwelling shall be employed in the home occupation. So if you and your fiance want to be the employees, so to speak, you can hire one person who is not a family member or rather a resident of the dwelling to be an employee, but that's it. Do you understand?
I do. Yeah. No, we will.
Okay. Number four, exterior signage shall be permitted if you do want to have a sign. Those in accordance with the home occupation sign provisions under section 12, sign regulations, subsection E. So essentially, if you want to have a sign, you would talk to Mr. Longstaff and he would give you all the dimensions you need for it. Do you understand?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Number five, there shall be no exterior display, no exterior storage of materials, and no other exterior indication of the home occupation or variation from the residential character of the principal building, except as expressly permitted by the district regulations in this ordinance. This prohibition shall not apply to the storage of lobster traps, which is not applicable here.
Yeah.
Um,
No, everything will be contained in the garage.
Okay. So you understand everything again. It gets back to everything related to this home occupation has to be inside of this building.
Correct.
Number six, no nuisance shall be generated, including but not necessarily limited to offensive noise, vibration, smoke, dust, odors, heat, or glare.
Correct. Yeah. And I guess that brings back, I'm sorry, what is his name? Chip
Yes.
with the neighbor complaint. So yeah. So I guess I'll just address it. Yeah, we had a complaint about noise and vibration from weights hitting the floor. So obviously when that came up, I did address it. I did buy like 6-inch like memory foam. They're called crash pads. So that way you can drop weight onto it and it absorbs it so it no longer makes noise. I'm assuming that has resolved the issue just because I have not got any feedback about it. So but yeah, so I am in complete control of the amount of noise that we could be generating, and I'm obviously open to feedback and making changes to make sure that it's not happening. So,
How long ago did you install these? Approximately.
well, they're not an install. It's like you can move it around. It's just like a foam pad.
Sure.
I would
sure.
say I've had them for roughly a month, give or take, maybe a little bit longer. I bought them off Facebook Marketplace. For what it's worth, but yeah.
Yep. Excellent. So about a month or two. Number seven,
Yeah,
the traffic generated by such home occupation shall not increase the volume of traffic so as to create a traffic hazard or disturb the residential character of the immediate neighborhood.
I say no.
Okay. Number 8, in addition to the off-street parking provided to meet the normal requirements of the dwelling, adequate off-street parking shall be provided for vehicles of each employee and the vehicles of the maximum number of users or customers the home occupation may attract during peak operating hours. So this gets back to the question of, do you have enough sufficient capacity for 6 to 7 individuals and those cars in addition to your own?
I would say in that case, yes. As far as off-street parking, that's something we've never had to use or even consider.
Okay. Yeah, and off street as in on your property, not on street as in not parking on Winnick's Neck Road.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Home occupation may utilize not more than 20% of the dwelling unit floor area, provided that for the purposes of this calculation, unfinished basement and attic spaces are not included. Unfinished attic and basement spaces and space within an accessory building totaling not more than 1,000 square feet of floor area. So is your enclosed space in your garage, is that less than 1,000 square feet?
It's supposed to I'm not exactly sure how that translates into, I think the garage is 20 by 24. But it is also still a garage, so it's not like it's fully cleaned out. Like we still have whatever, like a cabinet and some other stuff in there from home renovations, but yeah.
Sure.
If it's solely contained within the diagram that we have, it's 864 feet.
Yeah. So look, thank you, Melinda. Looking at the diagram, we have 36 long by 24 wide and 26 feet,
Excellent.
24 feet by 36 feet is 864 feet. So you're under the 1,000 square foot limit there. Moving on, 10, home occupations may include retail sales subject to the following limitations. The total area devoted to retail sales is limited to 400 square feet and must be fully enclosed within a building. The sale of products is limited to products and articles produced, assembled, or processed on the premises. Seafood, this is regarding to seafood, I will omit that. But do you understand these restrictions with regard to limiting to 400 square feet of sale of products, and any products that you are selling have to be produced within the structure? I'm not sure that necessarily applies here, but we still like you to answer anyways.
No.
Okay. Number 11 is a fisherman, lobsterman, or shellfish harvester. You are not either of those, are you correct? Excellent.
Correct.
So that is not applicable here. Also, number 12, motor vehicle repairs and motor vehicle towing businesses are not allowed as home occupations, and you are not in this business. So that is also not applicable. Mr. Longstaff, if you would advise me on procedure at this point, do we go one last call to the board for questions and then we go to the public comment?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Okay, so are there any questions from the board relating to the our A through I points in the special exception application, or any comments or questions in the home occupation that we just went over? Melinda, I see your hand up.
I'm just wondering, what is the square footage of the actual living area of the house? Because we just went through that there's got to be a certain percentage. All right, it can't exceed a.
If Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah, if the home occupation was to take place within the dwelling, then it's a certain percentage of the living area. The garage is considered an accessory structure there too. It's not living
Okay,
space.
so it doesn't matter.
Therefore, it has to be 1,000 square feet or less.
Okay.
Which we verified that it is. But good question. Thank you for pointing that out, Melinda. Other questions, comments from the board? Rudy?
Can I just confirm something that the appellant mentioned earlier, that typically he, his fiance, family and friends typically work out maybe 8 a.m. to 6 to 7 p.m. But any hours beyond that are not typical?
They are very untypical. Yeah, because we do live here, we still eat dinner, and we do whatever normal house things too. So yeah, we did, and we work full time. So
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the board? This is our last chance to ask questions directly to the applicant. At this time, seeing none. Okay, let's go into the public comment then, Brian. Brian, do we have any letters, emails, items that we need to read into the record? And Mr. Woodbury, at this time, we're all set with you for right now. The board is going to discuss internally. We're going to deal with information that the public may have sent in. And if we have any questions for you, we will let you know. So Brian, do we have anything that you would like to read in?
I received several emails, but they were mostly to provide me with attachments, links to videos, that kind of thing. I did question the senders of the emails, and I believe they are participating tonight and probably will be raising their hand and wanting to offer public comment. If I don't hear from those folks, then I'll be happy to try to. I did receive one email late this afternoon that kind of gave me some bullet points, but I believe that they're going to bring that up in public comment. So I'm going to wait to hear what they have to say.
Okay, I guess Jay, do you see any folks, and I guess any folks watching the this board meeting right now? If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. There should be a button that you can do to to alert us that you would like to speak. Mr. Chase, do you see anything out there?
I do. I have 3 so far, so I'm going to take them in the order that I have them right now. So
All right, let's start with number
so-
one.
Jeffrey and Shannon should be coming on. There
Hello,
should-
everyone. Hi, I'm Shannon
Hello,
Osback.
everyone.
Hi,
Shannon Jeff Osback. Hi.
Hi, Shannon and Jeff. Just real quick. So thank you for introducing your name. So for you folks and for anyone else on here, please state your name and your address, and then your public comment.
So it's Jeff and Shannon Osback, and we are located at 34 Winnicks Neck Road. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So we have sent in a few complaints. We have actually been experiencing Mr. Woodbury's gym fitness facility for the last year and a half now. And the noise, we've actually had to confront him on a couple occasions. And actually, the last time my husband confronted him was on June 26th, while he was in the middle of doing a class for shot put out in his backyard. And at the time, there was probably about 4 or 5 kids out there. And my husband did address the noise of his gym and the throwing of the shot put and how it was disturbing us. And at that point, Mr. Woodbury did stop his services or whatever his business. And then shortly after that, we received the letter of that he was filing for an exception. The noise and the vibration has been quite difficult to bear with in the last year and a half now. It's been because it's also in the gym, in his garage, that he's doing his weightlifting, and the garage doors are open. You can hear the slamming of the weights, but it's also his shot put and discus throwing and hammer throwing in the backyard with that's also causing noise and vibration.
I do believe they have the pictures of this.
And I did send some pictures into Mr. Longstaff. And he does have some of those pictures. I did send some videos too, but unfortunately he was unable to get those. I think he's pulling those up now. Thank you, Brian. So this is actually a photo of when we are backing out of our driveway. So when he's talking about the driveway, we are unable to see any cars coming unless we back out as farther than we need to.
Only 2 cars.
And that's only with about 3 cars there. So I can't imagine having 6 to 10 cars in that driveway, how difficult it's going to
Or
be
how safe
for
it
us,
would be.
or how safe it's going to be for us to get in and out of our own driveway. Our road has become pretty busy with traffic over the years. And, people do tend to speed up and down our road. This photo here is where the net for the shot put was prior to us confronting Brian on it, because as you can see, we're taking this photo from our bedroom. And so there's still he did move it.
It's a throwing circle.
And this is his throwing circle in his backyard. Again, the noise from the discus and the slamming, and it's
The
yeah.
loud noises these people make to throw these.
Yeah, and the
shot puts.
noises and the grunting of the kids throwing them, or the men throwing them, we can hear it at all times. And the times that he's talking about that he's in this business is not quite the,
I thought there was more pictures. than
yeah, there was more pictures, but unfortunately, I think there was unable to get them all. But the times of business that he's talking about is more like 5:30 to 8:30 at night. Where we get up and go to work pretty early, so we don't really know what's going on during the day. But I was home for 5 weeks on furlough, and it was a continuous thing. In the 5 weeks that I was home, it was a daily activity of the shot put out back.
Shot put, discus.
Discus, yeah,
Now
and
they-
the gym, you can hear the slamming of the weights. He did say something about now he has the padding and, now it isn't an issue, but he hasn't had anyone at his home since we confronted him on June 26th and confronted him about the noise. He kind of shut things down. He did have a few websites that says that his business will be coming up soon. He has an Instagram account. He has a Facebook account that talks about his business and what his plans are. And his plans are to open 6 platforms in his backyard for throwing discus
And shot put.
and shot put.
There's no medicine ball. outside.
All I can stress is, this is an R2 zone. It's a peaceful community. It's not it's a living residence,
It's a residential area.
residential area, not a business. We've already experienced
And that-
enough, really. We have already experienced enough. And I do have to speak up for and she did say that you guys could contact her, that we do have our, the woman across the street at 34 Winnick's Neck Road. She's in, 35, excuse me, 35 Winnick's Neck Road. She's an elderly woman. She hasn't been well for a while, but she has had concerns and has complained to us about the noise and how it impacts her because she can hear it from her bedroom. She did say, I spoke with her this afternoon. She apologized. She couldn't make it to the meeting, but she was unable to have any computer access and she has been struggling with vertigo. I do have her number and she said I was able to give it to you guys. If you want me to send that, I can. Yeah, I have a lot of, we have a lot of concerns. We're really concerned, not just for the noise, excuse me. We have, they're right outside of our room, our bedroom, it's disturbing the peace. We're also concerned of the lowering of our property value, the added traffic to our road and neighborhood, our privacy. And like I said, we've already experienced this for the last year and a half. This isn't something that's just going to start. We've already had much time with that. And we did send in, unfortunately, due to the coronavirus, we did send in a citizen's complaint talking about the violations. But again, this is about trying to just save our
Just
neighborhood and
trying to
keep
save our
the
neighborhood
peace in
peace.
our neighborhood. And I just have to stress that I really don't think anyone would want to live next to this. So that's all I have for today. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Is there a second person that wishes to speak, Jay?
Sorry, yep, we have Theodore I'm going to allow to speak now. Believe he should be coming up.
Go ahead, Ted.
I'm not up yet. Oh,
Yep,
Can-
can
can
hear
you
you
hear?
now.
you can hear me. Thank you.
Yes, we can.
I'm Ted Osback. My wife Diane is beside me. We owned the house prior to Jeff and Shannon until December of last year. And I want to just reiterate everything that Shannon has said, maybe a couple of other things. We're a lot older than Jeff and Shannon. And one of the things is I am very hard of hearing. But I could certainly hear the noise of a hammer throw being thrown, a shot pit being thrown. Discus, no, I can't hear the discus.
Got caught in a tree.
But I want to emphasize the fact that a hammer throw was thrown from Brian's property, and it hit Jeff and Shannon's tree, got hung up on the tree. They had to go over with a ladder to Jeff's tree and retrieve it. They actually had to go up to the top rung of the ladder to get it. Now, the responsibility if somebody got hurt on that would not have fallen on Brian Woodbury, but it would have fallen on Jeff and Shannon. Certainly don't think that's a proper thing to have next door to you. In the application, I want to go back because you did a very good job about the parking on that turn, and Shannon also did. When you back out of the Jeff and Shannon's driveway, if there's more than 4 vehicles in the Woodbury parking lot, you cannot see beyond that corner because there's a bunch of spruce trees that go along between Brian's property and the next property. So that's there. That's going to always be there, but it just does make it harder. More vehicles are going to be there. There are hours at 5 o'clock. When is the most traffic that you see on Winnick's Neck Road is at 5 o'clock?
It's not just friends and family.
And I mentioned the errant throws of the shot put of the discus. I just can't see how a training area is compatible with existing uses in the neighborhood. I mean, I don't believe any of you folks would like to have a training gym like this next door to you. I just can't. And it's the noise, vibration, hours of operation, etc. that are just not compatible with any residential area. And I know my wife would like to add some things.
If I may, my name is Diane Osbach, and I have just looked on the internet. Mr. Woodbury had a Facebook page, a business Facebook page, talking about his business, which is Slingshot Throws. He had prices up there. He had times up there. This is not just family and friends. This is a commercial gym and training center. They get paid. They actually had posted their fees. However, once Jeffrey confronted Mr. Woodbury, that went down and off as quickly as possible, never to be seen again, but it was there. And if you look now, you'll even see his logo is there. It says Slingshot Throws coming soon. So he's getting ready for it again. We did send photos to Mr. Longstaff. There are nets in the backyard. You'll see them. There are platforms in the backyard. And if you would look, the videos didn't go through, but you can see people down there with the shot puts twirling around and throwing the hammerhead or whatever that is. And you can hear the grunts, see the flings. It's very unsafe for anybody in a backyard with something like that maybe coming at them from an errant throw, which has happened. It went into the tree. So I would say this is not for family and friends. This is a paying business. And he had the website, the Facebook business account page, prices listed. In one video, he actually went into his garage and explained all his equipment that sure doesn't look like for family and friends. It is a commercial setup in there. Any gym would be glad to take that equipment. He also opened the French doors and said, out here we will have a place for 6 more ramps or pads, whatever they call them. He bragged about the netting. It can go up and down in a matter of minutes, so we can have it on each side and we can move it. Somehow he knew we were looking at that and sent it, because we sent it at 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon. At 5:30, that video was gone. So Mr. Woodbury, and I don't want to say is not telling the truth, but he's not telling the truth of the purpose of this gym. And it's just, again, bottom line is this is a residential area. It's not a safe thing to have in your backyard. And we are very opposed, but we don't live there anymore, but we were there, we saw it, we heard it. I can sympathize with anybody that's in that neighborhood. It's a bad decision, and I rest my case.
And could I make one other statement about this? As you all know, the town of Scarborough went through a recent reevaluation of property. That property on Winnick's Neck Road on the marsh side went up on an average of over 22%. Now, that gym training area is not going to help that evaluation. I mean, it's just going to lower the pricing. I talked with a Charlie Weber today. He was unaware of what was going on. He was too late in the process to get him involved. But his one comment to me was, I sure wouldn't like that next door to me. So I rest my case also.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jay, is there a third person that would like to speak as well?
Yep. Give me 1 minute. I'm gonna bring in Bradley Alsbeck. Hang on one moment.
It's the Osback family.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
So I'm a Scarborough resident. So I live also in Scarborough, and I want to, voice my dissatisfaction for this as a Scarborough resident. You guys have gone through the standards, and also when you talk to Mr. Woodbury, it seemed like somehow the outdoor portion of this business got left off the application, but this is an outdoor business. I have a home gym, probably some of you guys have a home gym. This is not a home gym. This is a gym where they practice to then go outdoors and throw rocks, hammers, shot puts, grunt. You can listen to the Olympics. You've seen it. You've heard it. The standards say that this has to be inside. This is not inside. You saw the outdoor throwing area. He wants to add more throwing areas. He also has a net, which is outside. He has lights, which are outside, which obviously doesn't fit into that standard. The other thing is offensive noise. There's already been complaints. There's complaints from them, from my brother, from the neighbors. The neighbors that moved out have also complained. So there is the offensive portion of that as well. And then that last portion in those standards is traffic. So I like to fish down there. I've driven by several times, and this also goes to speak for the time. I've driven by there at nighttime, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and there are cars parked in the driveway, in the road, and it's very, very scary to get around that corner when there's cars and different things in the road. So again, he doesn't have parking even there. And then again, back to the original point, this isn't a home gym. We all have those. It's a business and it's for outdoors. His gym is to train and throw outdoors. And then, Mr. Longstaff tried to compare this to a Tupperware party. This is nothing like a Tupperware party that's once a month or every 2 months. This is something that happens every day, 7 days a week, from 7 o'clock in the morning till who knows how late at night. That is not a home office or a home occupation or a home business. And I did a quick Google while we were talking. There's 20 gyms in Scarborough. They can go to any one of those gyms in Scarborough that are not in a residential area, but in a business area. There's also all kinds of public fields, all our tax dollars go. If they want to throw rocks and hammers, there's plenty of fields to do that, but not in my backyard. I don't think you guys would like that in your backyard as well. So I guess that's all I have to say there. Thank you guys for listening.
All right. Thank you, Brad. Mr. Chase, was there anybody else who would like to speak from the public?
Yes, we have one more person.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Waters. I'm at 48 Winnick's Neck Road. Can everybody hear me?
We do, Jennifer. Thank you.
Hi. Okay, well, I do have a toddler that may run in from the other room, so I'll try to make this as fast as possible.
That's okay.
Performance standards. I do drive by different points, usually at night around 5 o'clock. I will agree that traffic on Winnick's Neck Road is heavy. I have seen the driveway completely full, so I do question number 8, vehicle off-street parking ability, if the driveway is totally full. I can't speak to number 6 with the noise and vibration, but I think with the good neighbor ordinance, it's been hard to really pin down what kind of noise is too much. So I really, if it's too much for their neighbors, I think it's too much noise, would be my feeling on that. Number 7, the residential character of the neighborhood. There's also, I've seen some lights quite bright. I mean, I know people have floodlights on in their backyards, but the lights are quite bright as well. I agree the training pad is kind of big when the net is set up. I realize that if this home occupation would be granted, then everything would have to be inside. So I guess that's a moot point. My other question, I guess, would be for the signage. I have seen a sign up that says Slingshot Throws. On Facebook page, Slingshot Throws defines itself as a coaching club developing athletes across New England. So I really do question, I don't agree with endorsing this home occupation, because I think it opens up a window here for a commercial business. You can't really define who's a friend, who's on the commercial side of it. So I would oppose the exception for the home occupation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer. Any other comments from the public, Jay?
That is all I have seen for hands up. There are no other hands raised at this time.
Okay, well, seeing no more questions from the public, we will close the public hearing, or the public portion of the of this appeal. So just so that folks know, the board is going to deliberate and not speak internally. All of you can see and hear us now, but we will not be taking any more comments from the public unless addressed to by the board through the chair, which is myself. So if members of the board, we can go back to the standards for the special exceptions. We have items A through I. What I would like to do is basically go one by one through each of those, and then we'll vote on each one of those, A through I, and then we will vote on the home exception at the very end. Does that sound correct procedurally, Brian?
Yes, you can do that, and you may want to, with the home occupation standards, simply do them in bulk. If there's any standard that the board feels has not been met, mention it that way rather than going through all of those standards one by one. Just take out the ones that anybody feels have not been met and take a vote that way.
Yep, correct. Yep, and that's typically how we do it on all of these home occupations. We'll vote together on all of those, and then on the standards for special exceptions, we'll vote on those one by one.
And real quick, am I allowed to respond?
No, unfortunately not, Brian. I apologize, or Mr. Woodbury, I apologize. So if we have a question for you, we'll directly to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. I'm hearing a slight echo. Actually, Mr. Woodbury, could you, there we go. Thank you. I still hear it a little bit. I wonder who it is. Anyways, let's start at letter A, the proposed, and it probably is me. The proposed use will not create unsanitary or unhealthful conditions by reason of sewage disposal, emissions to the air or water, or other aspects of its design or operation. And let's go alphabetically, or like we do with the voting. So Mr. Bork, why don't you go first?
For this particular dimension, I don't see the impact as long as it's held entirely within the garage. So I don't think there's a problem here.
Okay. Mr. Karen?
I agree. As mentioned, the intent has shifted to be only interior to the garage area. And the appellant mentioned that there are no restrooms for this space, so I do not see that there'd be any additional sewage or emissions to air or water.
Okay. Mr. Powell?
Me?
Yes, sir.
Sorry. It echoed. I have nothing to add.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Torrance?
I'll agree with what's already been said.
Okay. This is a pretty standard. The proposed use, again, we're speaking about home occupation that's going to be entirely enclosed inside of the garage itself. It's a workout inside of the garage. There may be someone who uses the bathroom inside of the home, but that's no different than other folks being invited over to a home using their bathroom. All those in favor of A being met, we'll go through the roll call. Mr. Bork?
Yes.
Mr. Karen?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. Torrens?
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. So that's 5-0 on A. Letter B, the proposed use will not create unsafe vehicular or pedestrian traffic conditions when added to existing and foreseeable traffic in its vicinity. Starting in with Mr. Bork.
On this dimension, I don't really think that Mr. Woodbury has demonstrated that traffic would not be a problem, nor would he be able to provide sufficient parking. And in either case, it's currently on a very difficult corner to navigate, as we've heard extended testimony. So I would have to say that this particular one has not been met.
Okay. Mr. Karen?
I would agree that with the current anticipated users, that this standard has not been met. However, if there was some condition applied or proposed to limit the number of users at a given time for a given hours, that there may be a limited amount of parking available for use. I'm not proposing any conditions at this time. I just wanted to state that. But currently, with 6 to 7 people and the owners of the home, I do not see that there's sufficient parking to not be a danger to the users or those traveling down the road.
Okay. Mr. Howe?
Well, I think with the testimony that we heard from the neighbors, there is street parking that's been occurring in addition to parking in the driveway. And that is a difficult corner. I'm familiar with that area. So I don't feel that's been met.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Torrens?
Yeah, I would agree with what's already been said so far and only add to the fact that the hours of operation are during peak traffic times. And that only complicates the issues around the parking and vehicular flow that much more.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Torrens. Sorry, I have a few things fall off my desk here. My comment on this is, and as I've stated previously, is that because it's a street that the applicant stated cars go up and down potentially 40, 50 miles an hour. That's also been repeated by the folks who have been speaking during the public comment of this application. Got to have when you're talking about home occupations, you got to have a parking plan, especially if it's in your home. You need to indicate, there is a turnaround available for a vehicle, state how many vehicles can get in there and show that they can depart the site safely and not backing out onto a street. So that is my issue with this particular part of the application. So that being said, all those in favor of B being met, I'll go through the roll call. We'll start with Mr. Bork.
No.
Okay, Mr. Karen.
No.
Mr. Howe
No.
and Ms. Torrens.
No.
Okay, and I will also vote no on this one as well. Going on to letter C. The proposed use will not create public safety problems which would be substantially different from those created by existing uses in the neighborhood or require a substantially greater degree of municipal fire or police protection than existing uses in the neighborhood. Excuse me. Mr. Bork.
Okay, while we've heard extensive testimony about problems in the past, which are primarily due to exterior uses of this property, this business, I think with the restriction of all future business, if this is approved, needing to be indoor, I just don't see any additional impact on police or fire on this particular dimension. So in this case, I would say there's not a problem here.
Okay. Mr. Karen.
I do not see that there would be any different use. As mentioned, it would have to be contained within the building, the garage, and lifting or moving around. Any of those activities may be typical in a garage, so no issue there.
Okay. Mr. Howe.
I see no issue here.
Okay. Ms. Torrens.
I agree, no issue.
And I also agree. Public safety problems, you typically don't see that here. The concern again, from my standpoint, is just general public safety of vehicles going in and out of the residence or the proposed home occupation driveway. So let's go with the vote. Mr. Bork.
Yes.
Mr. Karen.
Yes.
Mr. Howe.
Yes.
Ms. Torrens.
Yes.
Okay, and I will vote yes as well. So that's 5-0 on C. Letter D, the proposed use will not result in sedimentation or erosion or have an adverse effect on water supplies. Mr. Bork.
Will not.
Okay, Mr. Karen.
I agree to not see anything impacting the surrounding of the garage if it's contained within that envelope.
Okay, Mr. Howe.
I see no issue.
Okay, Ms. Torrens.
Likewise, see no issue.
Okay, similar here. I mean, there's no water or liquid operation outside of your own sweat with an operation like this. So I don't see any issue here. Let's go through the roll call vote. Mr. Bork.
Yes.
Mr. Karen.
Yes.
Mr. Howe.
Yes.
Ms. Torrens.
Yes.
Okay. It's 5-0 for letter D. Letter E, the proposed use will be compatible with existing uses in the neighborhood with respect to physical size, visual impact, intensity of use, proximity to other structures, and density of development. Mr. Bork.
My primary concern here is intensity of use. The applicant has said that during peak times, it would be as many as 8 users. And we've already identified the parking issues, but this is really an intensity that's much greater than traditional uses in a neighborhood. So I would have to say that this was not met.
Okay, Mr. Karen.
I agree that for standard E, the only issue I foresee would be the intensity of use. As it's confined within that building, there would not be any issues with enlarged size or visual impact unless the garage doors were open. But the vibrations, or if the garage doors are open, the additional noise and grunts may not be compatible with existing uses in the neighborhood.
Okay. Mr. Howe.
I would agree with what's been mentioned.
Okay, Ms. Torrens.
Yeah, I will agree with what's been mentioned. My issue is really with the intensity of use and the fact that this is not like a traditional home occupation where you typically, have a daycare or a home office or something very simple going on. I think we've got a lot more people going in and out. We've got, the activity is probably more loud and disruptive. It's just not as compatible with residential use.
All right, thank you. With my concern also comes with visual impact and intensity of use as well. Potentially up to 8 users. If this becomes a regular event and you're having classes every single day, it starts to become a little bit more than events when you're having family over for visiting, which is, you know, potentially a couple times a week. But if it's every single day, I could see there potentially being an issue here, especially with the concerns that have been raised. So roll call vote on letter E. Mr. Bork, if you would.
No.
Okay. Mr. Karen.
No.
All right. Mr. Howe
No.
and Ms. Torrens.
No.
Okay, that's a 0 to 5 on letter E. Letter F, if located in the shoreland zone, as depicted in town of Scarborough shoreline, the town of Scarborough official shoreland zoning map, the proposed use will comply with all the requirements of the town of Scarborough shoreland zoning ordinance. I believe we left this one as not applicable. May we pass on this one and go to letter G, Brian?
Noted.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to hear it. Letter G, the applicant has sufficient right, title, or interest in the site of the proposed use to be able to carry out the proposed use. Mr. Bork.
Yes, he does.
Mr. Karen.
Yes, as mentioned, the warranty deed was provided.
Excellent. Mr. Howe.
Yes.
Ms. Torrens.
And yes.
Yep, as Mr. Karen stated, the warranty deed was included to show that they own entirely the property at 36 Winnick's Neck Road. Let's go through a roll call vote. Mr. Bork.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Karen.
Yes.
Mr. Howe.
Yes.
Ms. Torrens.
Yes.
And I will agree with this as well, 5-0. Letter H, the applicant has the technical and financial ability to meet the standards of this section and to comply with any conditions imposed by the Board of Appeals pursuant to subsection 5 of this section. Mr. Bork.
While the applicant didn't show any evidence, I would assume that because of the fact that both he and his partner are working full-time, that they do have the financial ability. So I will say yes on this.
Okay, Mr. Karen.
While there was not documentation provided, the appellant did mention that he and his fiance have much experience past working out and training.
Okay. Mr. Howe.
Nothing to add.
Okay. And Ms. Torrens.
And well, I agree that the applicant did not show any evidence of the financial resources and so on, but it's also been stated that he has all the equipment and that it's already been paid, you know, that's already paid for and done. You know, I was kind of surprised that he did not show photographs of any of the equipment or anything like that as well in there, but I would assume that he does have the resources.
Okay. And concurrently, I'll agree with what's been stated. Usually we like to, if you have the equipment already and you own the property outright, typically that's in one of many indications that you have the technical and financial ability to meet the standards of the section. So all those in favor of H, we'll start with Mr. Bork with a roll call vote.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Karen.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Howe.
Yes.
And Ms. Torrens.
Yes.
Okay, and I will agree with that as well. 5-0 for letter H. Let's go to letter I, the last one. The proposed use will be compatible with existing uses in the neighborhood with respect to the generation of noise and hours of operation. I'll start with you, Mr. Bork.
Not at all. In this particular case, we have many problems here in terms of the intensity and the noise generated by this particular type of equipment. The fact that garage doors are frequently left open, as well as the French doors in the back. There's a lot of noise being generated here that's substantially more significant than what would normally be in a home that doesn't have a business in it.
Okay, Mr. Karen.
Based on the testimony provided by the those in the audience and called in, it would appear that the noise generated is not compatible with the existing uses of nearby residences.
Mr. Howe.
I would agree with what's been said so far.
Okay, Ms. Torrens.
And I would agree. I don't think it's compatible at all with what's going on.
Yeah, and I tend to agree based on the information we received, and generally, whether it's indoors or outdoors, these are usually a lot of the home exception or a lot of the home occupations in this area are very small in the home office style, not typically gyms, which is still okay to be permitted here. However, due to a lot of the extenuating information and lack of the parking plan for me, I would have to go against this one as well. So letter I, let's go to roll call vote. Mr. Bork.
Thank you. No.
Okay, Mr. Karen,
No.
Mr. Howe,
No.
and Ms. Torrens.
No.
Okay, that's 0 to 5 on letter I, and I'll get back to the we'll get back to the standards for special exceptions in a moment, but right now I'd like to go to the home occupation performance standards. And what I'm going to do here is, per Brian's suggestion, we're going to vote all on this at once. But what I would like to do is just go through each of us individually and state certain specific sections if you agree or disagree with it. So, Mr. Bork, to put you on the spot, if you would go first.
All right. So my primary concern is the parking, lack thereof, in order to do a home business of this kind. And I just don't feel that this is possible, given the restrictions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Karen.
I just want to mention that for some reason I do not appear to have the appellant's responses to these. So going from memory, I would piggyback or agree with the concerns regarding the parking, hours of operation, noise generation, and that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Howe.
Parking is an issue, traffic is an issue, noise is an issue. Neighbors' complaints are to one another. So, no.
Okay, Ms. Torrens.
So I have several concerns. One of most being the traffic and the parking situation. But I also have concerns about what the ultimate goal of this business is, and it does not appear to be a small business. I don't really have that sense that this is not going to grow and become much bigger than what it is already, and it's already disruptive. So that's my primary concern.
Okay, and with me, we're calling out specifically in the performance standards, looking to number 6, no nuisance shall be generated, including but not necessarily limited to offensive noise, vibration, smoke, dust, odors, heat, or glare. I think we've all had issues with the offensive noise and vibration that's been going on. Number 7, the traffic generated by such occupation shall not increase the volume of traffic so not to create a traffic hazard or disturb the residential character of the immediate neighborhood. We were talking about parking earlier in the application, discussions of potentially using the lawn as a driveway, driving off the lawn onto the road, whereas, really needs to come from the driveway for ingress and egress onto a property, just for general public safety. And you have a road that is admitted during this presentation that cars go 40, 50 miles an hour down this road. It's a residential area. There really needs to be for almost all of these home occupation applications, a parking plan or some sort of parking study or traffic study, just to indicate what your impact is here. Understanding, you may know the people who are coming over to your home occupation or your business, but you need to understand that all of those cars have an impact, and you can't control someone who decides just to back out of your driveway or pull off on the grass or gravel onto the road. So those issues, and then the exterior display, number 5, there shall be no exterior display or exterior storage of materials or no other exterior indication of the home occupation or variation. Granted, that which was stated earlier by Mr. Longstaff, for personal use, you can do whatever you want. But this is a home occupation, and you are not allowed to have anything outside. It has to be solely within the structure. So with that being said, I'm going to go through a roll call vote. This vote will just be one vote on all of the performance standards, and I will start with Mr. Bork. Yay or nay?
Nay.
Okay, Mr. Karen?
Nay.
And Mr. Howe?
Nay.
Excellent. Ms. Torrance.
Nay.
And I will say no as well here. So we're at the point now, unfortunately, and we're looking at this. There are there were three sections of the standards for special exceptions that we weren't able to pass with a majority vote. So at this time, what I'm going to do is open the floor for a motion to approve application number 2696, and we can vote up or down at that point. Mr. Bork?
Mr. Chair, yes, I would like to make a motion to approve appeal number 2690, special exemption 436 Winnick's Neck Road.
I move to second.
Okay, so at this point, we're in the discussion phase. Does anyone have any just additional discussion they would like to add to this application? Please note that in order for us to pass it, we need to be not necessarily unanimous, but we have to have passed A through I. So this sort of locks us in place here, but are there any additional comments that board members would like to make? Okay, seeing none, I'll go through a roll call vote. Mr. Bork, do you vote in favor?
No.
Mr. Karen?
No.
Mr. Howe?
No.
Ms. Torrance?
No.
And I will vote negative as well. So motion fails. Appeal number 2690 will not pass. Mr. Woodbury, I apologize, but unfortunately this appeal did not pass today. If you want, you can work with Brian for anything you want to do in the future there. But we're all set with this tonight. Is there anything else, Brian, that we need to mention, Mr. Longstaff?
No, that takes care of that appeal.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next appeal on our agenda here. Appeal number 2691, limited reduction of yard size by Philip and Therese von Stade, I think. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Assessor's map U019, lot 34. Jason, if you, or excuse me, Jay, if you would bring those folks in and we can talk.
And I'll ask Mr. Von Stade if there's anyone else I should be bringing in at this time. And I'm attempting to unmute. Oh, there we go.
Are we unmuted? Can you hear us?
Yes, we can. Is this Philip?
This is Philip and Marianne. The name is pronounced in all sorts of ways, with Von Stade or Von Stade, whatever.
Von Stade it is. Well, thank you for joining us. Why don't you give us a brief introduction to who you are, what you're asking for, and then we'll go through the questions.
We are Philip and Marianne. We have a place here in Scarborough. It's a wonderful family place that's been around for a long time, and my folks built this in 40 years ago. There's an old 130-year-old house next door to us, which is part of our property that we rent out mostly. And the 40-year-old house that we have here, it's only for summers, by the way. It's 130 years old. No, nothing in way of insulation. So we rent that out, and we live in this little 2-bedroom house next door that my parents built when they had their first grandchild. You can understand perhaps how that is. And now we are hoping to probably move out here full time. We live in Portland currently. And we are hoping to get a variance here. The roads are a little awkward here where we are out at the end of Prouts Neck, and some of them go back into the 1800s, some into the 1900s and such. And some like ours around our property are 40 feet and then suddenly bounce out to 66 feet. I don't think my parents realized that at the time, and I don't think they've intended to add to it, but we want to add a just simple, we've only got 2 bedrooms right now, so we'd like to add a garage so that we can use that in a 2-car garage. And above that, a studio. My wife's an artist, and we'd like to add a studio and bedroom above that, so that we've got a place that the kids can be without being near us. In the rest of the house, it's awkward though, because the way the land is laid out and the way the setbacks are, and obviously the garage needs to be kind of near the kitchen, so that you can go from the garage to that, because we want to have it connected for winter use. And there is a huge, wonderful wolf pine or bull pine. And I think Brian has seen that and has some idea of just how special that unique is in Scarborough. And we're trying our best to protect that by asking just that we move a little, about 7 to 10 feet within the setback. So instead of being 40 feet from the official setback where the road actually is, if you look on the maps there that, or the plans that Brian just brought up, I guess that's what's being brought up right now. Can you see those, by the way? Who is controlling?
Yes, we can. Yep. Brian is controlling the screen right now. What he does, he'll bring up portions of your application there for us to see.
Terrific, terrific. So you can see the garage then, and then behind it, you'll see a circle, which hardly does justice to this huge, wonderful pine tree there. We call this the Pine Cottage because of the pine tree. And since the 40 years ago when my parents built it, where the pine tree was already big, there it is. Hey, there's Mary Ann standing in front of it. And you can see the outline of the garage. So basically what we want to do is we don't want to get too close to the pines. So that means we got to come a little bit closer to the viewer there. And in order to do that, we would be stepping into the 40-foot setback, which because of the way the roads are here, they're only about 12 to 15 feet wide of the 66 feet wide on the, what do you call this? The town plans. So it's a little awkward. Oh, there you go. You can see it there nicely with the driveway that we're intending to build. So we're going to have a kind of a circular driveway or semicircular driveway, so we can come in on the left side there and then go out on the right side. That's just convenient. I mean, there's no traffic to speak of up here, and the average speed coming up our hill is probably somewhere between 10 and 15 miles an hour, just because there's speed bumps, it's dirt roads. It's just a backcountry little area here in the middle of Prouts Neck, not on the water or anything fancy like that, in the woods. And we're surrounded by bushes and this fabulous tree. And so we're trying to protect that tree, and we're just asking for a standard 10-foot release, whatever, so that we, yeah, which should be at the most, just so we can come out a little bit further away from the roots and canopy of the tree.
All right. Well,
Brian might be able to add to that.
Do you have a few additional comments, Brian? Ms. Longstaff?
Nope.
Sorry, I was playing with my buttons here, trying to figure out how to get back to you. No, I think Mr. Von Stadi has explained his application very well. I think the key points again, the property is eligible for the limited reduction of yard size due to the time frame that it was built. I think the fact that there is some kind of a weird shift in the right of way that sort of cheated him out of 10 feet, right at about the area that he would like to have that back, and the protection of the very unique wolf pine tree. I think in your package you will also see an assessment from an arborist, licensed arborist, that kind of backs up how critical it is to kind of stay away from the root system of that tree in order to preserve it. Those are I think the key points with this particular application for the board to ponder. But again, for your benefit, it certainly is eligible for this if you deem that it meets the criteria, one of which is has construction started and it hasn't. So you can take one off the list, and the second one that the house was built before 1991. So there's two gone. So you have, I think, 3 left to work on.
Okay, excellent. Any questions from the board at this time for the applicant? I guess the one question I have is, would it be possible to build this garage without having to come before the zoning board if you took down the tree?
Yeah, if we took down the tree, but we're not taking down the tree no matter what.
No, and I understand. I'm just clarifying. I'm not making any suggestions or inferences at this time. Excellent. Well, thank you for that. Any other questions from the board? Mr. Karen?
It may have previously been mentioned, but just wanted to confirm that based on the roads and the location of the tree we've mentioned, there would be no other physical or practical place to place the garage.
Yes, that's correct. There's no other practical place. We've tried all sorts of things with architects and our friends, and there's just no way to move the garage without being, crazy and saying, oh, let's move it into the bedroom. No, it doesn't belong in the bedroom. Move it in front of the entrance to the house. That doesn't make sense either. And it doesn't make sense to move it anywhere behind the house on the other side, because then we wouldn't be able to access directly to the kitchen. And it's also drops off quite a bit on there because we're on top of ledge. So we've really tried our hardest to look at other options and just can't find any.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay. So what I'm going to do is, Mr. Von Stade, I will going to go through the numbers in section C 1 through 5. There are a couple that we can omit if it's already been discussed. If you can just read the answers that you provided us directly right off the application, just for the record. So I'll state this, but we're going to skip number 1, the existing building or structure on the lot for which the limited reduction of yard size residential is requested was erected prior to July 3rd, 1991, or the lot is a vacant non-conforming lot of record that has been confirmed by the town that the home was built in 1981. So number 2, the requested reduction is reasonably necessary to permit the owner or occupant of the property to use and enjoy the property in essentially the same manner as other similar properties are utilized in the zoning district.
Yes, there are similar properties with garages right around us.
Okay. Number 3, due to the physical features of the lot and or the location of existing structures on the lot, it would be not practical to construct the proposed expansion, enlargement, or new structure in conformance with the currently applicable yard size requirements.
Yes, we would like the garage to lead to the kitchen without blocking the house main entrance, but we also need to avoid damaging the roots of the unique huge wolf pine, which sits mostly on the ledge. You can see the notes from the arborist if you want. We have tried many different orientations, but none works without encroaching on the roots or slightly on the 40-foot setback.
Understood. Number 4, the impacts and effects of the enlargement, expansion, or new building or structure on the existing uses in the neighborhood would not be substantially different from or greater than the impacts and effects of a building or structure which conforms to the yard size requirement.
No, there should be no impact because rural nature. Our setting, the actual road dimensions and locations are much farther away from setbacks than we would be normal. It would be hardly noticeable in a way.
Excellent. Thank you. And number 5, we've already been addressed by the town as no construction has yet been started. So if there are no questions from the board, what we're going to do, Mr. Von Stade, is we're going to be going into any comments from the public that may want to speak on this, and then we'll be going internally into the questions ourselves. So you folks are all set right now. You can put your mics on mute, and if we have any questions, we'll direct them to you. All right. So Mr. Longstaff, have there been any emails, phone calls, letters that have come in regarding this property?
I have received no emails, letters, or phone calls on this property. On
Okay.
this appeal, excuse me.
Okay. Seems pretty straightforward. Let's go through one by one of these items here. And what we can do is, and Mr. Longstaff, please let me know if you object, as we can discuss each one of these items and then we'll vote on them at the end. And then at the very end, we will just do our normal motion to approve the appeal and go forward. Does that work?
Sounds right to me.
Okay.
Mr.
So,
Hebert,
yes.
if I may, just want to
Please.
be sure, I understand you were just asking Brian if there's any public letters. Is this also the time that you normally open for public comment, or does that come later? I just want to.
Yes, no, I apologize. Thank you for that, Jay. If there are folks from the public who would like to speak, please, please do so now. Raise your hand and let Mr. Chase know And are there any folks out there who would like to speak?
So I'm not seeing anyone raise their hand, though I do see a phone number, and I know with the phone number, it can be a little difficult. So I'm gonna just allow that person to speak and
Okay.
just see if they truly wish to speak or not. So phone number 653-6700. If you, your audio is up right now.
I guess whomever's dialed in on 653-6700, if you would like to speak, you may do so now. Okay, seeing no response, let's close that off, Jay, and we'll move on. All right, board, let's go and talk through number one. Seems pretty straightforward. I don't see it necessary to go through and discuss it. The existing building structure was constructed prior to 1991. Let's just go through the roll call vote on that. Mr. Bork,
Yes.
Mr. Karen,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
and Ms. Torrens.
Yes.
All right, excellent. 5-0 for number one on C1. Number two, the requested reduction is reasonably necessary to permit the owner or occupant of the property to use and enjoy the property in essentially the same manner as other similar properties are utilized in the zoning district. Mr. Bork.
Yes, garages are customary.
Mr. Karen,
Nothing further to add.
Mr. Howe.
Nothing further.
Okay, Ms. Torrens.
Yep, seems to mimic the rest of the neighborhood.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a garage. Folks are, I mean, everyone has a garage, and we live in Maine, and we have lots of things that we need to put in those garages. So I don't see this as really being out of the ordinary for this neighborhood. Let's go through a roll call vote. Mr. Bork,
Yes.
Mr. Karen,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. Torrens,
Yes.
and I will vote in the affirmative as well. 5-0. That's unanimous. Number three, due to the physical features of the lot and or the location of the existing structures on the lot, it would not be practical to construct the proposed expansion, enlargement, or new structure in conformance with the currently applicable yard size requirements. Mr. Bork.
This is the only practical place to locate the garage, given the beautiful tree, which must be protected.
Mr. Karen.
I agree. Based on the testimony and the documentation provided, architectural drawings, it appears that this is the best place for this garage and the most practical. It sounds, or we've heard tonight, that alternatives were considered, but were not sufficient.
Mr. Howe.
These folks have done their due diligence and looking at and reviewing what can be done there, which is this plan.
All right, Ms. Torrens.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they've done exactly what they needed to do to explore the options, and this is really the only practical place to put this addition.
Excellent. And I'll add into that as well. It's nice to see real sensitivity brought towards something especially as historic as this wolf pine. I mean, we have notable regal pines in one portion of Scarborough. We have a beach named after a pine. This is it's very nice to see. My comment earlier about can the tree be cut down to put a garage there was just want. Of course, that is always an option, but in the sense of what you're asking for in the context of how this application is presented, we'll certainly appreciate the efforts to save the tree. So going through this, Mr. Bork, your vote, please.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Karen.
Yes.
Mr. Howe.
Yes.
Ms. Torrens.
Yes.
And I will vote in favor of this as well. 5-0. It's unanimous for number three. Number four, the impacts and effects of the enlargement, expansion, or new building or structure on existing uses in the neighborhood will not be substantially different from or greater than the impacts and effects of a building or structure.
Okay.
Which conforms to the art.
I kind of lost your audio there for a second, but
oh no,
I was able to read along, so I know it. No, this will not be out of scale to anything else that's in the neighborhood. It's very similar in scope, so it's definitely fits in.
Okay, Mr. Karen.
I agree. Having a garage fits in with the neighborhood.
Mr. Howe,
It's a character fine.
Ms. Torrance,
Oops. Yes, it's perfectly fine.
excellent. I mean, the structure and its proposed use is completely acceptable within this district in this area. People can have garages, they can have art studios, the small rooms above, and they've built to code. So it is not going to be substantially different from anything in the neighborhood that's already been seen. So Mr. Bork, your vote.
Yes.
Mr. Karen,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. Torrance,
Oops. Yes.
and I will vote in the affirmative as well, 5-0. This last one, I won't go around the horn for this, but just state that the applicant has not commenced construction of the enlargement, expansion, building, or structure for which the limited reduction in yard size is requested, so that the Board of Appeals is not considering an after-the-fact application. The town has confirmed that no construction has been started yet. So I'm just going to go through a roll call vote on this. Mr. Bork,
Yes.
Mr. Karen,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
and Ms. Torrance.
Yes.
And I will also vote in favor of that as well. 5-0 unanimous on number 5. Okay. That being said, do I have a motion on the floor for the appeal number 2691?
Mr. Chair, a motion to approve appeal number 2691 as stated.
Okay, Mr.
Motion
Karen.
and a second.
Okay. Any further discussion from board members before we vote? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor, Mr. Bork,
Yes.
Mr. Karen,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. Torrance,
Yes.
and I will vote in the affirmative as well. So appeal number 2691 passes. Congratulations. And good luck with your construction. I guess at this time, are there any comments from Town of Scarborough staff that would like to be mentioned at this time?
Just to follow up, and for the public's benefit, as well as Mr. Von Stadi's, the next step is obviously a building permit application, and also to make sure that once you receive the certificate of variance approval, you get that recorded within 90 days at the Registry of Deeds in Cumberland County. So those are the kind of the final steps on that. To your question about staff comments, I would only add that we are still down one member. Ms. Shoup, the chairman, was not able to attend tonight. She was also having some internet problems, but had a conflict. So I want to thank Mr. Howe for filling in as an alternate, and that's why alternates are so important, is to be able to provide that voting member when a regular member can't attend. But we do have an opening for another alternate. And we'd love to have that filled. So just want to put that out there. And aside from that, I guess one other thing, and I would invite Jay to weigh in if he has any comment, but I mean, for the foreseeable future, I've been asked this a few times. I don't see us going back to public meetings anytime in the very near future. So this virtual platform for holding board meetings, Board of Appeals meetings, is probably going to continue for at least the foreseeable future into the fall, and I really can't see beyond that, so I don't dare say when. But we initially were hoping maybe this would be a three or four meeting endeavor. I think it's going to be a little longer than that, but I think it's working well, and I appreciate the board's patience and willingness to do it this way. And business is getting done. So thank you.
I appreciate that, Brian. And thank you as well, you and Jay, for sticking with us on these late nights. I know despite the limited reduction in hours, the reduction in hours that the town staff has have, I still know that is a significant amount of hours that both you, Jay, and other members of the town still have to do in order to make up for all that. So thank you. We really appreciate that. I guess are there any motions out there?
Motion to adjourn.
Of a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Mr. Bork? Aye. Yes.
Aye.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That concludes July 8th, 2020 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Thank you for joining us.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.